I'm really excited to bring on a guest today who found me through YouTube, and he asked me some really good questions. We had a good Q&A, and we said, let's just take this on the YouTube channel. So I'm going to introduce, and I want to get your name right.
Ross Zeiger.
Yeah. Go ahead, you say it, Ross.
Zeiger. It's like tiger, rhymes with tiger.
Ross Zeiger. So, yep. And Ross is out of Houston, Texas. He's a first choice business broker. And Ross has a cool history. He was a captain with the U.S. Marine Corps. So we've got somebody who served our country. Thank you for your service, Ross.
My pleasure.
He also worked at Deloitte, which is a big outfit. Some sharp. They don't hire people off the street at Deloitte. It's some sharp folks at Deloitte. And then he said, you know what? I'm crazy enough. I'm going to be a business broker. He started doing it part-time, and about 6 months ago, he went full-time. So he's one of the crazies, as I like to say. He's crazy enough to do this business that we're in. And I'm happy for you. Welcome to the club, Ross. Welcome to the program. That's my introduction for you, but I want to give you a chance to introduce yourself.
Yeah, thanks, Neil. Thanks for having me on. Really great to talk to you. One other part of my story, between the Marine Corps and Deloitte, I ran a business. I ran, and then sold a business. It was a doggy daycare in Washington State, where I'm from. And I did that without a broker. I didn't even know brokers existed. Yeah. So I just trial by fire, Googling things like, how do I do a bill of sale, all that kind of stuff. And then when I came to sell that business, I did end up talking to a broker, but my business was too small for him to want to deal with me. But he answered a lot of questions, and that was my first exposure to the industry. And then I ended up working for Deloitte after that. And then a little bit into my time at Deloitte, I was kind of, the business broker idea was still in my head, and you were actually one of the first people I found on YouTube explaining what business brokers do. That was probably 9 months ago or so. And then I started looking into how to become an agent, and here I am. Fast forward to a couple of weeks ago too. I wanted to shout this out. I saw Clint Fiore, I think is his name. I followed him on YouTube.
That's a good guy.
I saw a photo of you and Trent Lee, and Clint all in a room, and then I started watching your videos again, and that's when I sent you an email and started reaching out to you.
Some of the best minds in business brokers were in that room, and they let me in, which is great. Those are some top-notch folks, and we all met up at the M&A conference in San Diego. That was this month, and
oh really?
Yeah, wow. And shout out to Live Oak Bank, who sponsored that dinner that we had. It was a very, very nice dinner, and it was a good group. So yeah, and Clint's on social. What's Clint's Twitter? Probably a good deal. Clint Fiore.
I think he has a newsletter called that. I think his Twitter might just be his name.
Oh, okay, that's right. So shout out to Clint. I'll put that in the comments as well. And hey, you reminded me, Ross, that we have the pet industry connection as well, because my first business was a pet store. I didn't do grooming, cool. But I sold tropical fish, Nemo and Dory, and wow. Pretty much same origin story as you. Just kind of stumbled into it, built it, sold it, didn't know what I was doing. It was like, oh, you can do this. This is a career, and so
that's crazy. That's a real coincidence.
Yeah. Well, that's how a lot of us stumble into this industry. It's a crazy industry. That's why I joke about, you gotta be crazy to get into it. But once you've been through it and you kind of, I call it my origin story, because now when I'm serving owners, I know what they've been through. I've been on their side of the desk, and I know they probably want to do something else, and it was fun for a while, and now it's not. They just have other pressing things. So I think I know you're into this game a little bit, but that's something that you have that you can leverage immediately, that what it's like to be a business owner.
Right. Yeah.
But let's back up a little bit. I want to kind of get into that leap of you're working at Deloitte and you're like, I could do this other thing. Walk me through your head. Where was your head out that made you think about it? What made you excited about this industry? Talk me through why you chose to go down this path.
Yeah, so I've always just loved business, like coming up with ideas,
Yeah.
trying to do little entrepreneurial things in high school and college, and just always knew it was a route I wanted to go down. But I've come to realize I'm not the kind of person that can start a business. There's different types of people. Some people are starters, and some people are like more operators, you know?
Yeah.
So for me, I'm more suited towards buying a business, which is why I ended up doing that. But I just enjoyed the process and just being around. I like looking at biz buy sell. I like digging into financials, and so it was all just kind of a natural fit for what I like to do.
Yeah.
And I think it's super meaningful work too, providing a small business to a community. Getting people into a dream business is all really important work.
I think you well, first of all, those people out there that are just keep going back to biz buy sell, keep looking at businesses over and again, and are like P&Ls and balance sheets, that is a good sign that you could be a business broker. You're trying to figure out, I call it the financial story of a business, and you're trying to piece together, does this make sense? I mean, that's what we do as business brokers. We're analyzing deals, deciding if we want to represent them. But yeah, I think that's great. The other thing you mentioned is about the passion for helping people. If you don't have that, then what are you doing? What are you doing?
Right.
When buyers call, I just had a buyer call. He's calling about a salon, a hair salon that's all women owned, and I could tell he was like, "How much money does it make? If I got rid of the lady that's running it, how much do I have to replace her?" And I'm listening for, are you passionate about running a salon? I'm not hearing any of that. And I know I just got off the phone with another woman who's in the salon business who is like emotional about the opportunity to work with her peers. And I'm thinking, what's the better fit here for the buyer of this business? It's the same thing with business brokerage. Like if you're just in it for the money, it's
if it's just a spreadsheet number for you or whatever, then it's not gonna end well.
It's not gonna. That's right.
Yeah.
Well, along your path, tell me more about that. You mentioned, I mentioned your small business ownership is a direct application, but being a captain in the Air Force, and tell me more about what you did at Deloitte. What are the types of skills that you are used to using? I want to see how those are going to transfer into this. Let's talk about kind of what you've done up till now.
Yeah. So in the Marine Corps, I started off in flight school. I was training to become a pilot, and I was miserable doing that. So I dropped out and I got reassigned as an air support control officer.
Yeah.
So I was kind of like air traffic control, but like a mobile version. Like we operate out of Humvees with maps and radios.
Yeah.
And so a lot of that is like, there's a lot of planning involved, like, scheduling things and coordinating with different teams and budgets and all that type of work. The primary military officer skill is management, dealing with people. So there's that.
Yeah.
And then at Deloitte, I was a Salesforce marketing cloud consultant. So we were setting up, I was only at Deloitte for a year, and I had one client the whole time. So it was a telecom company, and we were setting up emails and text messages for them. So it'd be automated when customers would do a certain thing, and then they'd get a text, your iPhone's on the way, or those type of transactional messages.
So much of this, I mean, you're describing this as kind of humdrum, but all of this transfers. Question for you: when you are in the aviation industry, what's more important to get right, taking off or landing?
Landing. Yeah.
You got to land the plane, right?
Yeah.
I use this analogy with owners. Like, we're gonna go on a flight here, and when we close the deal, we're landing the plane. Like, it's great to take off, it's great to be cruising, and I'm talking to buyers. Once we get that buyer and we're coming in we're descending and tray tables are up, like we gotta land this plane. And
that's where all the work is.
Yeah, I love that analogy, and there's a lot of parallels. You're gonna have turbulence. There's very much a lot of work in the beginning and at the end, much like an airplane flight, and there's this middle part where the client's kind of cruising a little bit. But So there's a lot of parallels with the aviation business. And then at Deloitte, the stuff that you're talking about, I mean, we're quickly getting into marketing here. I know with my business, people get texts all the time. When they sign it, when they inquire about a business, they start to get like, hey, sign this NDA. Here's a text. Here's an appointment confirmation. Like the more technology you can layer into this business for the front end, just to get through the minutia, that I call it the humdum stuff of like appointments and NDAs, the more you can get that automated with technology, the more you can get to the people that you really want to spend time talking to and building those relationships. So I think all of that stuff transfers, especially the people part.
Yeah, absolutely. That ties into a question I was going to ask you is, in my email to you with a bunch of questions a couple weeks back, I asked you where the industry's headed, and you said a lot more automation and obviously tech being incorporated. And so I was curious, like, what some of those tools are, and if you tailor it to different clients, like maybe some of your older clients don't appreciate receiving emails or texts and that kind of thing.
I think you kind of have to throw it all out there. I mean, when people, the volume stuff is, we live and breathe business listings. Business listings are our inventory. And we want to get as much buyer interest in the listings as possible. I know we're going to talk about buyer rep later in this call, but for most business brokers, even if you do buyer rep, seller rep is where the commissions are. And part of that is creating a competitive environment. And you want lots and lots of buyers to raise their hand. And when this happens, a series of things have to happen. You gotta, and we put more roadblocks in front of them than most do. There's some decisions you'll have to make when you build out your business processes, is about how much you want to screen buyers and when you want to give them information. But we want to talk to every buyer for a reason, but we want to talk to them after they sign the NDA. So that's where I'm using technology to get the stuff that everybody just has to get through that stuff. I don't even have to talk to you. And I have an assistant, and she calls people that aren't using the automation stuff. But then she's just using my calendar app, which puts them kind of back into the automation system. Like, here's a Calendly link that you can pick your own time. But if you don't do that, then she's going to call you and say which time works for you. And then once she fills that out, it's going to send you texts and remind you and all of that stuff. So I think that some people do fear this business will become completely automated, but I don't worry about that too much. It hasn't happened in the mortgage industry, and there's a lot of parallels with real estate and mortgages and business brokerage.
Automated in the sense that brokers won't have a role anymore, like people just transact online and.
Correct. Well, here's the scary part. There's a list in Main Street Business. There's a listing website where the majority of businesses are listed. It's not an MLS, but any broker worth his or her salt will list their businesses there. If you don't, you're not doing a service to your client. And so a lot of traffic goes through that site. And any business broker, if you Google their market, that website comes up before any business broker. That's kind of scary. So we're kind of competing with this site, and we get a lot of buyer activity through it. But the scary thing is, what if they said, okay, we found your business, and you don't need to call a broker. Let's just we'll take it from here. Just keep clicking through, and we'll get you to the end. That's the scary. That's what some people worry about. But I don't worry about that too much, just because I think people are going to spend hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars on a business, or people are going to sell their most valuable asset. They're going to feel more comfortable talking to somebody. And that's where we add value, is we understand the process. We've done this before. Let us walk you through this process. So to me, that's where technology comes in. Use it for all the boring stuff, and then use our time to focus on the relationship parts, and nothing ever fits in a box. So
connecting and
But technology is good. The people that use technology tend to be more productive, especially if they can make it user friendly.
Right. Yeah. Used well, it can be a tool.
Yeah. Well, um, thank you for asking that question. And jump in with any questions, but I'm curious about your path. Now that you've been in it for like several months now, what has surprised you so far? What are the early learning points for you in your journey?
Yeah. I know I've listened to your Gary Chan talk, and at the end of that, you said your overarching advice to new brokers is that it's going to take time.
Yeah.
It's going to take time and money. And I knew that. I'd heard other brokers say that, but I had this vision like I'm going to be different, you know?
Sure.
And I'm going to come in, I'm going to fill my day with calls, and I'm going to have listings and everything. And that hasn't been the case. It's been slow getting started. So that's been I guess a bit of a surprise. Shouldn't be a surprise if I'd listened to the advice that was
So far it has been.
right, right. And
Okay.
I can see the momentum building. I'm building contacts and those sellers who are saying, I'm not quite ready yet, but I'll keep you in mind and that kind of thing.
Are you probably hearing a lot of you have my buyer? You're probably hearing a lot of
Oh
like,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
you bring
yeah.
me the buyer, we'll do this deal.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not looking to sell, but at the right number with the buyer, yeah,
I
I'll
call
do it.
that the bull ride. When you get that owner on the phone, and I like to call them owners. I tend to avoid sellers. I just think
Okay.
it's a little bit, it speaks more to the fact that they've built something and
Uh-huh.
they actually haven't sold until later in
So
the
they have.
process.
Yeah.
But you get that owner on the phone and you're a business broker, intermediary, whatever you want to call yourself, and you sell businesses. And here's a person that owns a business and they are talking about selling it. And you're like, oh my God, it's happening. I found them. But then they start throwing these roadblocks at you, like, who's your buyer? Are they going to pay me top dollar? And
Mm-hmm.
that's where it gets fun to me. But it's also a bull ride. You just got to kind of hang on and learn while you're there. But to that point, it takes a long time and it takes money. I've said all the time, like my plan for my first year was to be able to make it a year without making money,
Mm-hmm.
and to invest in my business during that
Mm-hmm.
time. And unfortunately, I achieved my plan. I sold zero businesses in my first year. I know I have friends that made 100 grand in their first year. Um, but I did. I think I sold 14 in my second year, and most of those
Wow.
had started in
Yeah,
planted
got
those
the
seeds. I
listings
got
halfway through.
listings in my first year, but it takes 6 to 9 months for these once you get the listing. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and the people who did make money in their first year did exactly what you're doing. They hit the
Okay.
ground running and super busy, and just takes one for it to all
Mm-hmm.
come together.
Makes sense. I
Um,
wanted to ask you too.
yeah,
I asked you about education and stuff with getting started, and you've made some great videos about that as well.
thank you.
But you recommended the CBI,
I do. Yeah,
and I looked into that, and it would be a little bit of a stretch to my budget to do it,
yeah.
but I could do it. But I wanted to get your advice. Like, should I do it as soon as possible? And I think that's what you're going to say, but be
Um,
curious to hear your thoughts.
well, I'll try to make this concise. I just enrolled in the IBBA has a new master's program. I don't think they
Mm,
call it master's program, but I'm doing their next education thing.
mm-hmm.
Um, I've got a few different credentials, but I'm always wanting to learn. But my first thing that I did to learn my business, and you're with First
First
Choice, and
choice.
I'm sure they
Yeah.
provide you with some education,
Mm-hmm.
and I got some education when I started as well. But before all of that, I took a class from William Bruce, and it was his organization, or it's called the American Business Brokers Association. It was a one
Mm,
weekend course. It was like
okay.
1,000, maybe $2,000. I can't remember how much it was. It was a long time ago. But I flew to some hotel room somewhere, and I did a course in a weekend. And for me, that was like the stepping stone, because I was exactly where you're at. Like, I don't want to spend the money on a CBI, and that takes forever. By the way,
Mm-hmm.
they made it harder since I got it. But
I know
for
you have to
me,
close 3 deals.
yeah,
That's
just
why I'm asking the question too, is like, should I wait till I have 2 deals done and then enroll? Like,
I told you it'd be a long answer. I'm
yeah,
bringing it
yeah, yeah.
home. I liked, for me, the little lily pad of that first certification, which I don't put it behind anything, but for me to spend that money and be like, oh yeah, this is this is for me. And I learned a lot that weekend. If I went to that now, I'd be like, this is a waste of time. But for me, right then, that was a good use of time. So to answer your question about the CBI, I would start taking the basic classes. They're $200-300 a pop, and you need a lot of them. Right. Don't say, I'm just going to knock out my CBI. Just start by the way, December. Well, by the time you watch this, if you're watching at home, it's probably expired. But every December, they put them on sale. The class is on sale. And throughout the year, they have sales. So buy them when they're on sale. Look at what's required for the CBI and just start stacking up those credits. Look at when the
so just buy them a la carte rather than the whole package at once.
Some parts you can. I would definitely buy the when you take a few, like the introduction to business brokerage, and you like it, and you're already in, Ross. Right. I mean, you're on this path already, so just commit to it. But for those people that aren't sure yet, I would just buy one or two. And as you start learning it, if you're like, oh my God, I didn't know that's how this works. If every class you're taking is like, this is exactly what I need to learn, then just lean in a little bit more. So it's like, how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? You just got to get started and start moving, and just know you're investing in your education. I'm still doing it now. I'm still taking classes and learning from the greats, and I got a long way to go. But yeah, I would do the CBI. Okay. I'm looking. I don't have the mergers and acquisition master intermediary. That for me, that's the next big one, and that's 10x of the investment and the experience level of the CBI. So it's just recognize it's a journey of 1,000 steps. You just got to take that first step.
Okay.
You don't have to do the whole thing. Just take 1 or 2 classes and see how it goes. I think you'll like it, and then you'll be like, of course,
see the value, and then go from there.
But half of it is just getting. You got to have deals done to get a CBI.
Right.
So half of it is getting out there, making the calls. Talk to me about. I think you're in Texas. You do some buyer rep stuff, right?
Right. Yeah. So, I've been working with a lot of E2 buyers. Yeah. Who I have a connection with the E2 attorney. Great. And he's in Canada. So he works with French Canadians that want to buy a business, specifically in Florida, the ones that I've been working with. Yeah. And so he'll come to me with a client that wants to buy a construction company in a certain city in Florida. And so I'll start a search in that area and reach out to some brokers in that area. Nice. And haven't closed any deals yet, but a lot of conversations going on. Yeah. Well, if you were in a market, I'm talking to the people watching, if you're in a market where there's a good active co-brokering conditions, that's wonderful. Florida, I think Texas, California, the states with associations that are crushing it, and they've built out that infrastructure. Buy side is definitely a great opportunity, especially if you're a newer broker, and you will get that deal activity, and you'll get sellers out of it just by providing a good service to buyers. So I'm glad to hear that you're doing some of that. Candidly, I don't know how you do this across market thing. I don't know how you're in Texas and you're dealing with someone in Florida. I mean, I could learn a lot from you about how to manage and build relationships across state lines and deal with the finding advisors in their markets and stuff. Like you got a Canadian E2 guy, and for me, keeping it local has been the quickest way to build out kind of buyers and sellers that are matched. But the E2 is a great opportunity because those people that are committed to moving here, they got to buy something. I mean, right. In general, and they were probably, the fact that they have the money to do the E2 probably means they were successful before. Yeah. So I did one, and I consider him a friend. He came from Ilkley, UK, and I did not take him seriously when he called. Again, we don't have as much of this in North Carolina, but he said, he pinged through the listing sites and said, I want to buy this cleaning business. And I'm like, whatever, dude. And then he said, I bought a house in North Carolina. I'm like, okay, I'm going to take you seriously. And then I got on a Zoom call with him, I think. And I think he'd already been to the market as a visitor. And I thought, okay, this guy's legit. In my experience is we did the whole deal, and he was a motivated buyer, and he had a timeline, and he put all of the money into escrow, no SBA financing.
And then it was like, as long as his visa comes through, this deal is done. And it didn't work out for my seller. But it was a little bit of risk. Like if he got rejected, then we would have had to kind of start over. And so there's a long wait time.
How long did it take to get the visa?
It's been several years. 2, maybe 3 months.
Okay. Yeah, that's about on par with what I've heard.
And he had to write like a book for a consulate. Like he had to write a very long book report. Buying a business is hard in general. So you add that to it, and it's
add on the government, add on the USCIS, and it gets real complicated.
And I remember he had 2 attorneys because his immigration attorney wasn't a transaction attorney. So I'm sure he spent a lot on legal fees. But you know what? Great folks. They came to this market. They brought their family and they bought this business. And his wife opened her own business here, and it's been a success story. So
that's awesome.
Well, that's great if you can tap into that. And sometimes it's just about finding a strategy that works for you, and then executing on that. You know, you could become a visa guy and just do that, or that could be a part of something bigger. But I love that you're kind of chasing these different strings, if you will. So we talked a little bit about co-brokering. I want to kind of fast forward. I just mentioned like you could become the E2 guy, but do you have a kind of a vision of where you want to go? Is there a certain type of business, e-commerce or retail or service or home business? Is there something specific that you like and you want to spend more time working in?
I mean, E2 has kind of been my only answer to that question so far. I heard your advice, going back to all your previous videos that I've been consuming. You gave the advice of like starting as a generalist and figuring out what you like. So that's kind of where I'm at right now, really, is just play in the field and narrow down from there.
That was one of the things they talked about it in San Diego at the M&A source, is how to become a specialist. And a lot of people said different things. They had multiple specialists, but some folks were like, you do one deal and you learn so much about that deal, you could be a specialist at that point. And it's really becomes a marketing thing. For me, if I feel like I avoid professional practices, doctors, lawyers, dentists, CPA, I probably could do that stuff, but I tend to refer that stuff to specialists. The professional practices I see more specialists in, but you could become a specialist in anything.
Do you have, let me turn the question back to you. Do you have a specialty or a preference?
I don't. You know what's interesting? I've done a lot of retail. I laugh when I said retail, but you had a service business. I had a retail business with a little bit of service. I almost view it as a weakness of mine. I know retail. If I didn't know retail so well, I wouldn't say yes to a lot of the businesses that I've sold. And I probably would have focused on some more, let's face it, future-proof, Amazon-proof industries. I think that if I just said, screw retail, I'm going straight into e-commerce. I don't know it, but I'm going to learn it, or manufacturing or something else, I probably would have,
had a very different path. Yeah.
But I know retail. I come from retail. I have a soft spot for retail because I was one of those guys. So what I really like right now are service businesses, home or business focused. Because if you think about retail, you got 4 walls, you're space dependent, and you quickly can outgrow that space. And there's a definition, like you have 2,500 square feet. The most you can do is $1 million. And then you got to expand. You got to build a new kitchen. You got to do this. Whereas if you're running a business out of a commercial office and you have a fleet of trucks and you're going to people's homes, all you need are more trucks. To me, it's just a much more scalable business. It's much easier to get to the next $1 million if it's a service business. So that's kind of where I've been focusing, and I enjoy those deals a lot.
Makes sense. Yeah.
All righty. Well, I got to start to wrap this up. So let's pivot a little bit. Let me share this. I want to share, if people want to learn more about you, they can connect with you on LinkedIn. And I'm going to share, you have this says a lot about your approach. You've got I think can we see your page here? Yeah. So this is Ross Ziegler. Did I get it right?
Zeiger.
Ross Zeiger's website. You can learn more about Ross here. And he's got some video, which I love, on YouTube. So this is a great way to learn more about Ross. Ross, give me your email as well. If people want to reach out to you, what's a good email for you?
Yep. Ross, my first name, .Zeiger at fcbb.com. That's First Choice Business Brokers.
Cool. Well, Ross, thank you for kind of initiating this. I want to kind of wrap things up just by wishing you, we're filming this going right into 2023. So I'd love to stay in contact with you and
Absolutely.
see where your career goes, and we'll reciprocate. I'll keep you updated.
Likewise.
On things are going here. If you're watching at home and you're thinking about becoming a business broker, I welcome any type of questions or comments. If it's a public thing, you can put it in the chat. If it's more confidential, just email me like Ross did. Neil at Raleigh Business Broker is a good way to handle me. And Neil spelled the correct way, as you can see with the NEAL. But that's all I got for today. Ross, any words to go out on?
I just appreciate you having me on, Neil, and it's really kind of you and generous of you to share your time and your knowledge and help out a young new broker. So I really appreciate it.
The pleasure's all mine, Ross. I enjoyed the chat. And well, that's all, folks. Thanks for watching. Until next time, this is Neil Isaacs on behalf of Ross saying adios.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.